This is the Immigrant View with Ayo Owuduni.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Immigrant View. My name is Ayo Owuduni, and today we're talking about your credit history. Money, money, money. I believe this is very important to the foundation of your financial success in your new country. And I went out to go in search of people that are better experts at this types of things so they can talk about it with confidence. And we have with us today the National Director, Client Success at Windmill Microlending. We're going to talk about Windmill in a quick second because I don't know, I should say I'm a stakeholder or my wife is a success story of Windmill. She was part of the Windmill program a few years ago, and it's really helped her out in her career. So yeah, I've known about this for quite a while and really excited. But we have Paula Calderon. Did I say that properly?
Correct.
Yes. Paula Calderon here with us, and we're talking about your credit history. How are you, Paula?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to talk to you today.
Fantastic. Before we even get started and go into credit history, let's quickly talk about Windmill. What is Windmill all about?
Sure. Windmill Microlending is a national charity. And Windmill was founded in Calgary on a great story. I mean, Dr. Maria Erickson worked at the Calgary Hospital, and she was working late, like a lot of us do. And she was constantly talking to the staff that were there, the janitors and the cleaning staff, everyone that was working at the hospital late at night. And the story kept coming up that, so what do you do? Where do you come from? They were all immigrants, and they were actually all trained healthcare professionals in their countries. Wow. But they were here cleaning her garbage and doing things that she felt were a waste of skills, right? So why are you not practicing in your profession? And the story just kept repeating itself that they just could not afford the cost of relicensing or to take time off work because they needed the income, right? So it's sort of that catch-22. Do you focus on your licensing and your education, but forego the income that you're getting? Or do you focus on work and then forego your profession, right? So she sat down at her kitchen table with a few of her friends and said, couldn't we solve this if we raise some funds and just help these people with loans? Because one thing she identified was they did not have access to affordable loans because they were very new to the country, did not have credit history, and so on and so forth, which we will be talking about shortly. But
wow.
So she did that, and with her friends, they got some funds together and did the first 5 loans. This was 16 years ago, almost 17 years ago, and that's how the Windmill story started. And now we're lending to over 1,000 newcomers a year, and we're hoping to grow and do more of that.
That is amazing. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, my wife was one of the people that got some money. I believe this was 2017. She was able to do a certification in her field, was able to get a job within months of finishing that certification. And she has actually been in that same job ever since. And yeah, just very, very powerful.
Well, I did not know that, Aya. It's so great to hear that your wife was a Windmill alumni. So that's a surprise to me.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, Claudia and I spoke about it. So yes, she is an alumni. And yeah, she was part of it. So yeah, just very, it was really good to be able to give her that extra boost that was needed to get back into her space as quickly as possible. So before we go into credit history once again, if any immigrant is just coming in or they're just hearing about Windmill right now, what would you say could be next steps for them if they're interested in even just learning more or anything like that?
Sure. I mean, there's tons of information on our website. So it's windmillmicrolending.org. Okay. But in terms of next steps, I mean, one thing that's really important is for people to know and understand what their career path needs to be. So what do they need money for in terms of education and training or relicensing? What are those processes? Now, we have an interesting model in which we have client success coaches, which are there to support our clients through their journey with Windmill and their loans. And when your wife actually was with us, we did not have that model because I joined Windmill in 2018 and started the client success coaching model.
Oh, wow.
And what our coaches are there to do is to assess what clients think that they need. So they come with a learning plan, with their budget. There's a few things that need to be filled in to give us enough information about what it is that they're going to do. How well informed are they? Do they really have a sound plan in place? Because we're not in the business of getting people into unnecessary debt.
Right.
We're here to help people to succeed in their careers. So if you have an idea of what you want and how much money you need for that, you go into Windmill, you fill out, there's an eligibility quiz that tells you if you're eligible. I mean, to be eligible for a Windmill loan, you need to be an immigrant at some point in your career and with some previous education or work experience and looking to get into your career, whether it's for people that are in regulated professions, it's of course, it's obvious they need a license to practice their profession in Canada. For people in unregulated professions, well, it depends what they need to be more competitive in the labor market. So we look for that. We make sure that people have the right information and the right idea on what to do. And if they don't and need some additional career counseling or supports, then what we do is we refer to our partners. We have a vast network of partners across the country that can support people with their different needs in order to build that plan and then come back to us with the right request for funds to fund those plans.
Fantastic. So visit their website, windmillmicrolending.org. And you are across Canada, am I correct?
We are national, any part of the country. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's good to know.
And everything is done online. So I must say everything is done online. The application is online, the interview with the coach is online, and the disbursement of funds is all very well structured. You never have to walk into an office. It's all done digitally.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing more success stories. 1,000. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know of one, and nothing but great report from her around Windmill and what she's learned and what she's gained through it. So kudos to you and the team. So let's talk about credit history. Why is this an important topic? I come from a cash and carry economy. If you don't have the cash, you are not carrying anything out of that store, or you go straight to prison or something. So why is credit history important, or your credit score? Why is it important to anything in line with your finances in Canada?
Yeah, well, North America is a very different culture to that cash and carry culture that some of us are used to, right? As you say, a lot of things. I mean, credit here is an enabler. Credit is the way you actually move forward and get ahead, whether it's a car, a house, even your cell phone. Lots of things depend on credit and people. It's okay to have credit. What is really important is to know how to manage credit and the difference between good and bad debt. Right. So those are the things. I mean, that's where we feel we have a responsibility in helping newcomers understand that credit is important, that you need to start building credit as soon as possible, because it will enable you to do many things in the future as you progress in your career and help you empower you financially and build that financial stability that we would like everyone to have in this country. But that it's a dangerous and risky thing, and that you have to be careful on how you do it. So it's important to have a trusted source to do that. So financial literacy is a big piece for us. People come to us for a loan for education and training, but they come out with a lot more. They come out with more knowledge and understanding of the financial system in Canada, and of course with that credit history that's so important to build. So credit history is important because all lenders, insurers, employers, and I would say, yes, even employers may check your credit history. And people sometimes when they're looking for jobs, they're familiar with what behavioral interviews are, and that people ask questions in interviews that are behavioral in nature because they're trying to assess previous behavior and pair that with what the future behavior would be. It's exactly the same with credit. People want to understand how you've managed your finances to see how you're going to manage them in the future, right? So that's why credit history is important. It determines the ability that people have to obtain other credit and many other things. As I said, sometimes renting a living space, right? A house or an apartment, they would check your credit. If the ability to have affordable products, like if you want to have sometimes a cell phone or other things that require credit history, you might get better rates the better your credit is, right? Or other loans as well in the future. So we can't really anticipate what we will need financially in the future, but we can start building credit history as soon as possible so that when we have a financial need in the future, we have access to good, affordable credit and are not stuck in the bad credit and bad debt that I've been talking about, which is offered pretty much everywhere, but is very, very dangerous to get into.
Makes a lot of sense. I remember when I needed to do my master's, because I didn't have much credit history, I couldn't access the loan, so I had to get a co-signer, which was my wife that was able to help support me through that process. When we first arrived here, we couldn't find a place to stay because we didn't have a credit history. So we went from one landlord to another, and none of them were willing to give us a place to stay until we found a co-signer, a family member who was willing to sign or step in with us before we could find a place. And even then, that place was sketchy. You know, within the first week, police was called more than once into that place. And we're just like, what did we get ourselves into? So very, very interesting story there around credit history. So what can you do as a new immigrant? You're just arriving, you're 30 or 40 years old, and you don't have any credit history. How do you start, quote unquote, building that history? If you can help talk about the professionals that are coming in, and then also maybe students as well that are probably just arriving as undergrads or coming in to do their masters. How do you advise for both of them?
Sure. I mean, there's lots of things people can do to start building credit history and good credit history, as I said. So paying bills on time. So whether it's your utilities bills like hydro and phone and cable, all of that, pay that on time. People don't realize that that's actually reflected in your credit history. That if you miss payments in your bills, that will come up in your credit history. So there is a credit bureau in Canada that records all of your credit and all of your credit behavior and payments of bills and loans and all of that. So it's very, very important to know that is reflected in your credit history. So yeah, if you're the forgetful type, I would say set up direct billing and ways that you don't forget to pay your bills on time, right? And then other things is like getting a credit card could be on a small limit and a small amount. So here's the catch-22. It's important to have credit and to get loans and things like that to build credit history, but it can reflect negatively if you have too much, right? Too much credit or you owe too much. So don't get 5-6 credit cards and don't start putting everything on credit or on loans, because that can also damage your credit. So very limited, very well managed is what we're looking for. So get a small credit card and pay the bills on time. That will help you really build a solid credit history and avoid also interest charges, right? You don't want to pay too much interest. So looking for options that are low interest and that you can manage the payments on time always is what you have to do. So if you need, for example, in the Windmill case, if you need to get, if you want to get further education or you need licensing in Canada and you go to Windmill for an affordable loan, then that's a way to build credit while you also get your education. So we are about to release a little report on the difference between immigrants who take out credit with Windmill and those who don't in terms of their income increase through time. And you can see that the financial stability is exponential and it's a lot quicker for people to integrate financially and to build financial stability when they go through through programs like ours, right? So that's what I mean by getting good credit. So credit that actually is beneficial to you in many ways than just the purpose of the loan. And a Windmill loan does that. But as I said, with other ways, I mean, with small limit credit cards and trying not to do like cash advances and doing things that really can get you into trouble financially, but also damage your credit history. And one thing that, sorry, I just want to point out, because you were talking about yourself and your wife, it's really, really important for people to know that they should establish their own credit. In many countries, we have like one spouse is the one that takes out all the credit and that manages the finances. It's really important. Credit history is something very individual, and it's really important in the case of couples for them both to build some credit history in the country.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So, can you just walk us through what the scoring system is like? And by the way, as we're listening to this, you can get a free report of your credit history, where it is right now, even if it's 6 months or 1 year, just so you're aware of what is there, if it's done by you or somebody else. But can you walk us through a credit score? So if I have, I don't know, 625 or 540, which nobody wants, or like 750 or something, like, how do I know if it's good or bad, or man, this is terrible?
I know. Well, nowadays it's before that was the mystery. I don't know what my credit history is. And keep in mind that every time that you request credit or you do something, and then the company or organization checks your credit history, that actually is a hit on your credit history and affects it negatively, so your points go down. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Don't go shopping around for credit. Do your research, do everything, and know what you want to get in terms of credit, so that the hits on your credit report are less than they should be. So that's important. But when we talk about credit scores, so in Canada, there's usually a scoring range between 300 and 900. So 300 being the poorest, lowest score that you can have, and nobody wants to come near you for lending you any money.
You're like a skunk in that situation.
You're high risk for any financial institution if you're in those low 300s. And then 900 being the top seller, anything you want, they'll throw money at you. So essentially, on average, a very good or a good credit score is 650 and above. And that's when the banks start looking at you, say, okay, we will consider you for what you want and what you need. So the idea would be to build up to above 650, 600 to 650, and maintain it there. And if you maintain it there, you will actually see it growing pretty quickly. It's faster than you actually think it is, where your credit score goes up. But it can also go down very quickly. So keeping an eye on that is important. And nowadays, as I said, it's so much easier because most of the banks, if you are on mobile banking and you look at the app for your bank, you will have your credit rating available to you. That didn't happen before. It was really hard to see your credit ratings, but now it is available and it's free. As I said, when you do an official pull of your credit history or your credit rating, that's when your credit is hit. But if you're just looking at it through those services, then there won't be any, your credit history is not affected. Your rating is not affected.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Now, you mentioned earlier on about Windmill and providing loans. What does it take for someone to qualify for a Windmill loan, one? And two, is that a way to also build your credit history?
Absolutely, 100%. So to be eligible for a Windmill loan, I mean, you have to be an immigrant to Canada, whether you have a permanent residency or you've already become citizen, but you have immigrated to Canada at some point and you have not reached the employment goals that you want to reach. And for that, you need further education and training, right? So it's just, I mean, that's the basic eligibility. Overall, you can't have a bankruptcy. That's the only financial reason why I would say it could be difficult to get a Windmill loan. Other than that, we don't need a cosigner. We don't need any collateral. And the credit rating for us is sort of like, we check credit ratings, we check credit scores to see if there's any red flags in terms of behavior, because that happens sometimes, but overall it would not affect the eligibility for the loan. So low credit history or no credit history does not affect the eligibility. So we look at the suitability of the plan that the person has. I mean, does this make sense in terms of the education that they want to take? Is it going to lead them to the employment outcomes that they want to achieve? And does the cost make sense, right? And another thing I should point out, a Windmill loan can be used for much more than just tuition. So whether you need childcare, whether you need equipment, tools, transportation, whatever is encompassed in achieving that goal,
Okay.
can be added to the loan amount, right? But it's important to know that we look at that more than the financial risk. The financial risk is as I mentioned before, we don't want to get people into unnecessary debt or put them into, if they're already into a lot of debt and in financial troubles, we don't want to increase that financial burden, right? So we may ask them to take care of some of that and then come back. Overall, Windmill does not decline a lot of loans. I think around 3 to 6% of loans are declined a year. So as long as there's a good plan in place and people are serious about what they want to achieve, we're here to support them to do that.
And the reason most of those ones are declined is because you don't see it as part of like a career plan?
Well, that would be, it depends. As I said, the suitability of their learning plan might not be right. So in that case, we may refer them to career counseling or to other organizations who can help them build a better plan, or we may suggest some alternatives. And if they decide to do that and we find it's a better plan, then that they can come back to request the money again. If it's normally the ones that we are definitely adamant in declining is when the financial risk is too high for both them and the organization. So yeah, suitability can be corrected a lot easier.
Can you talk through changing careers? So let's say I'm moving here, I want a fresh start in life. And I've noticed that the pinnacle of my, what should I call it? My career in Canada, I'm only making 70,000 or something like that. And you know what? I want to do a lot better. So I want to change careers totally. Is that possible with Windmill?
Absolutely. And that's new, actually. That's only in the last 2 years we've been able to lend for career change and for professional development. So people who actually want to do something else to get further ahead because they still need more, or a career change entirely. And keep in mind that career change, that was the reasoning behind expanding our loan policies to lend for people for career changes, that sometimes our careers don't translate exactly the same in the country. So it's not exactly the same type of role that you had back in your country and you decide you want to change. The only thing that's really important is to know that we don't lend for any programs that are more than 2 years. So it can't be to go back to university and do another bachelor's degree. That's not going to work, because our goal is to get people employed as quickly as possible, right? And supporting them through that journey. And because they usually come with, I mean, as you know, most immigrants come with a lot of experience and qualifications from their country. So utilize that as soon as possible to integrate economically into the country. But that being said, if they have enough transferable skills, if they have some sort of experience in the past doing what they want to do next in their career change, so if that makes sense, absolutely, they can make a career change and we can lend them money to do that.
Fantastic. Well, I've learned a thing or two about credit history. Thank you very much. And any other thoughts around what can people do to around being responsible around credit cards and things like that? Because those things can easily, you start out and before you know it, you're thousands of dollars in debts if care is not taken. So would love to hear some of your thoughts and advice around managing this new power that you have in your hand.
Yeah. So first of all, is be aware that that's important and mindful about how you use credit. So make payments on time whenever you can. Pay the full balance if you can every month. That would be great, especially when you're starting to build your credit history. That would be very helpful. Use credit very wisely. Don't use it unnecessarily. Limit the number of applications that you do for credit so that your credit checks are not affecting your credit history. Be on top of the credit. I mean, if there's sometimes that things happen and there are inaccuracies reported in your credit report or in your statements, as soon as you find an inaccuracy in your statement, make sure that you contact the institution that you're working with so that that can be corrected as soon as possible. And try to diversify the type of credit that you have, whether it's a credit card, a loan, or a line of credit. It would be good to diversify that. Those are ways of building good credit history. Make sure you only borrow what you can afford. Don't go beyond what you can afford according to your financial situation at the time, right? Use small amounts, start with only one credit card if you need to, whenever possible. As I said, pay the full balance. So do it within your means, right? So that you can make your payment on time, because as I said, it's really important to make sure that you're doing it well, that you're building the credit as soon as possible, but you're building it well. Yeah, that's it. So regularly check, have your own credit score, pay your bills on time, and check your credit score regularly so that you stay on top of things.
Fantastic. Paula Calderon, thank you very much for joining us today. This has been awesome. We've learned a lot about Windmill. We've learned about credit history as well. And remember, if you're interested in learning more about Windmill, you can visit their website, windmillmicrolending.org. I feel like I've done so many adverts for Windmill today. Y'all better pay me. What is this?
I think we need to get you on our payroll, Io. Sure.
Y'all better pay me for this.
Well, we look forward to helping as many immigrants and newcomers as we can. We want to see people succeeding in the country. That's what Canada is all about. We bring in the best and the brightest, and we want the best and the brightest to be successful in this country, right? So just like you and I, we're both immigrants. We both came with a dream, and we want to see people achieve those dreams as quickly as possible, because this is a great country.
Fantastic. Thanks for all the great work you guys are doing. You're all doing over there. That's wonderful.
My pleasure.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. For more information, please visit our website, theimmigrantView.com. That is theimmigrantView.com.